Okay, so go to resource. Okay, now part of being a designer, and specifically a web designer, is not only learning how to do stuff, but learning how to do stuff. And you got a huge advantage that I didn't have, that none of us had 20 years ago, which was the internet wasn't around. But and it was hard to do web design when the internet wasn't around. Trust. But back doing graphic design, we didn't have the internet to look things up, but you guys do. So one thing that might help you is some resources where you can find things out about the web and the state of the web. In our resources section, um, you're going to find some resources here that are very valuable for that, called Smashing Magazine. Most of the stuff is free, and Smashing Magazine is it's a series of articles that come out, most of which are focused on web design, graphic design, and they're just great articles. Every now and then they'll give you free templates for WordPress and other sites, and it's just a great place to go for resources. Another one that's not only a good place for web design resources, but just a very, very interesting website is called Pop URLs. Does anybody know of this? Anybody this site? No? Okay, you guys know what a news aggregator is? What's a news aggregator? What does the word aggregator mean? I don't know, I'm asking now, I'm just kidding. An aggregator is something that pulls things together, okay? So an aggregator, a news aggregator is a site that grabs news items from different places and pulls them together. So this is a news aggregator, and what it does is it pulls in information from all these different sites, and so instead of going like to Digg or to Reddit or to Salon.com or New York Times or something, you can go to this one website and see what's happening all over the internet at the same time. So you can scroll down through this website, and there's a lot of entertainment here. There's Flickr posts, there's Huffington Post, Google News, New York Times, like I said. But if you come down to this section, you're going to get a section called Hacker News, which gives you information relevant to people who are interested in code. You're going to get to Slashdot, which is very interesting stuff that has to do with just technology. Boing Boing, which is just sort of an entertaining thing. And then you're also going to get, see, where's that other site? There's another site on here that also has really interesting things. Well, anyway, there's more here than you could ever imagine or process. So I always go here and scan my eyes over all these things, and I'll see little ads, or little headlines here that'll say something like, the best top 10 WordPress themes of 2014, and it's really helpful to trip over this stuff. Let's see. I think I told you guys about. Have I told you about Color Lovers? Did we talk about that yet? Okay. So let me click on this link. So Color Lovers is a website that will have color palettes for almost any occasion, right? So for example, you can go here and you can say, oh, I want to do a website and I want it to be like a spring fashion show website. So you can just type the word spring up here and hit the magnifying glass, and it will bring up palettes of colors of spring type of colors. And then you can click on one of these and you're like, yeah, I dig those colors. And then you can actually download, you see these little buttons over here, you can actually download these colors to different programs, to different Adobe programs, and it will bring up a palette in that program of those colors. Okay, so Color Lovers is a great resource. You can get not only palettes here, you can download patterns and other things too. By the way, color is spelled C-O-L-U-O-U-R, which is the British way of spelling it. So it's a great resource, and I've used all these resources repeatedly to do web design. So if you get a chance, I won't do too many more of these, but if you get a chance, look through the resources page and just browse through here. You might find something really interesting. This is the last one I'll do right now. CSS Zen Garden is very interesting. What it is they take the same block of code and they put it up there and they say any designer that wants to can take the same website content and repurpose it to look any way you want. So in other words, it's like if you gave everybody a paint can with the same color and said, okay, everybody make a different painting. So you can just see from the thumbnails here how different all the designs are, and the way that the people customize these designs, same exact content, is just through CSS. So you can look at these sites and see how different and how powerful CSS is, and you can even look at the code and see what they did to achieve these things. Okay, so those are some resources that are available to you. Now, another resource that's available to you, which we used last time, is the website List-O-Matic, which is where we got our menu for our websites. Now, once again, List-O-Matic is not located at listomatic.com. It's on some weird guy's website, maxdesigns.com.au, so some Australian guy, you have to be careful of them. He is out there doing this for free, and he doesn't own the List-O-Matic URL, so you just have to type List-O-Matic into the search box, and you'll get all of these options. Now, we used a very simple list to make a website navigation menu, and as you can see, if we look down here at the HTML, this list is composed entirely of HTML code and no CSS code. But if we want to make a more complex and interesting navigation bar, for example, let's come down here to rollover lists, we can see that this menu, this navigation bar, is much more interesting. It's got color and boxes, and when you roll over it, the colors change. Now, by definition, because that's more complex, we can expect more complexity in the code, and sure enough, we can see that this code has two pieces of information: HTML code that sits on your source code page, on your index.html page, and CSS information which goes on your CSS website page, right? So your CSS style sheet, right? Well, let's see how this works. For example, if you guys would be so good as to navigate to listomatic.com, and when you get there, I'm sorry, it's not listomatic.com, to the List-O-Matic website. So you're going to have to type List-O-Matic into Google and come to css.maxdesign.com.au/List-O-Matic. And what I'd like you to do is, on this front page here, scroll down and click on the link called Rollover Lists, the one that I just clicked on. And when you do that, you should see this little fantastic list of buttons here. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to replace the code on your Project 1 page, to replace the HTML code with this block of HTML code here. So when you get to the rollover list, I'd like you to highlight and then copy everything in the HTML section, not including the word HTML. So everything that I've highlighted there, go ahead and copy that. Then go to Dreamweaver, go into your sidebar, okay, which is this area over here. Go into the HTML code part of your page, go into your sidebar, and you should see something that says like div ID nav container. You want to highlight everything, and you got to be careful here so you don't delete the wrong thing. You're going to have something that says div ID sidebar, and at the end of that section you're going to have a closing div which says /div. Now you want to highlight everything between those, which is going to include the div ID nav container and the closing div for that, and you want to replace that with the code that we just grabbed. So if you copied it earlier and then you highlight this, you can just do Control V or Command V on a Macintosh and paste it in. Now, if I'm correct, it's exactly the same, isn't it? I think it's the identical code. So you shouldn't have any problems there. Now, what I'd like you to do is click over to your style sheet and scroll down to the bottom of your style sheet where you have some blank space. And now go back on the web and go to that page for List-O-Matic and scroll down and copy everything in the CSS section, not including the word CSS at the top. So we're gonna do from #nav container all the way down to and including this closing curly bracket. Okay? and that is going to be the CSS that accompanies this navigation menu. So you're going to hit Control-C or Command-C on a Mac, copy that, go back to Dreamweaver, go to the bottom of your CSS style sheet, and hit Command-V or Control-V. And then you can go back to your design view, and now you should see your nice little rollover menu there with the working rollover. Now, for some of you, that has immediately improved the look and feel of your website so that now it's much more sophisticated. It's got buttons and rollovers, and you can customize that any way you want. Now let's talk about how you would customize it. If we want to go back into the split screen view here and then click on style.css, so we're seeing our style sheet, we can scroll down to the bottom section of this page and we can see basically where it all starts. In my case, it starts after the footer style. We have something called nav container. It sets a width of 200 pixels, and that's like the div that holds the menu. Then we've got something called nav container UL. UL stands for unordered list, and that's what our menu is. It's a list of items that are not in any particular order. Then we've got something called # nav container A, which means anything that's a link. The letter A refers to links inside of your menus. Now, it's in this section that we can start to make some changes. For example, you can see that the background color listed in # nav container A is #036, which is some form of blue. Now, if I highlight that and I change it to the word red, and then we go look at my website, you can see that now the background color of these little boxes here is now red instead of the blue. So you could simply replace that color with whatever color you want to use. Now, if I roll over these buttons, the color changes to the same light blue that it was before, which means that there's a separate piece of CSS code that is controlling what's called the rollover part of this design. Now that rollover part of the design is referred to as a hover section, right? So if we go back to our CSS style sheet and we scroll down to what's called at the very bottom # nav container A hover, what that means is, you know, these CSS styles, these rules can get very complex, and you have to sort of read them in order from left to right. So what this means is the # means that this is an ID. It's a div that is of the style ID. Nav container is the name of the div. A means that it has to do with links. :hover means it has to do with rolling over something that's linked. Okay, so what that all translates to is if you're in the nav container section, which is this section here, and there's a link such as this menu item, and you roll over it, it's going to now take on the characteristics and the attributes of that style. So that style shows that there's a background color of #369. If I highlight that, I can easily change it to another color. By the way that you change it to a color is you delete what's in there, you put your mouse, your flashing cursor so it's directly next to, right after the colon, and you hit your space bar. And what that does is it brings up the code hints, this little thing right here, and you can double click on the word color, and that will bring up this little color picker, and you can drag your little eyedropper to whatever color you want. Actually, I want some kind of a really obvious color so we can see this. So I'm going to choose some kind of a yellow. And now I'm going to go back to my design, and now when I roll over my menu buttons, they turn yellow. So this is how you go about customizing existing code. You find the areas that you want to change based on their functionality, and then you make changes to, you know, whatever's there. Now here's a little question for you to see who remembers this. So this section here, this nav container A hover, I changed this attribute, which is background color, right? What does this word color, what part of that section does this affect?
The font?
The text color, yeah. So once again, colors is sort of anti-intuitive. So it's # FFF, which is what color?
White.
It's white. So the text is white. If you wanted the text to be black, you could change this to # what? 000, which is black. Okay? Now I don't expect you to memorize all the colors, all 16 million. That you won't be tested on that. But some of the ones that we use a lot, like 000 for black and FFF for white, you'll just remember those. This E, I believe, is a gray color. Okay, so is that starting to make a little sense to you guys? How these menus work and how you can adjust them? Okay, so that's just kind of a very brief look at the menus that you can get from List-O-Matic and how you can change them. And so far we've been dealing with these vertical menus which go over in the sidebar. And now we're going to step up to working with horizontal menus, which we see much more often, right? On websites, you see horizontal menus at the top. Now, just so you know, with websites, and this is very important, it's important in general in design, but with web design, it takes on a level of importance, a much greater level of importance. Who can define for me the term visual hierarchy? How many people are just going to jump up and volunteer?
First
John?
thing you see, the first thing that stands out when you see a website.
That's it. A visual hierarchy. A hierarchy is an order. So like the king and the queen are at the top, and then the dukes, and then where the lieutenants and the peasants, going on down. Yes?
The home page, right? Mostly, in most websites.
Right. So the visual hierarchy refers to whatever stands out first is at the top of the hierarchy, like the king and the queen get the best meat and mutton, right? So when you look at this website, let's just try it on this. What's in the number one position on this website? What do you see first?
A little pig.
I heard one person say pig, and I heard one person say what? The red, right? The red stands out because visually it is more dynamic and it's a brighter color than the other colors. So tell me some things that can make something, that can grab your attention, some different attributes that you could do on a website or in any design that would bring attention to it. Color is one.
Movement.
Movement, okay, so if you had an animation, what else?
Contrast.
Contrast, okay, good. So light colors versus dark colors.
Size.
Size is a great one. That's the one I was looking for. So if something's bigger, right? How about nudity? No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
Digital appeal, yeah.
Oh, this grabs my attention. Like you're on the airplane and you look over what some other guy's looking at on his laptop. Okay. All right. So these are all great. Now, there's one more. This one's tricky. Okay. I'm going to try and trick you right now. I probably shouldn't tell you where I'm going to try and trick you. That way, I would actually trick you. This one has to do with the way that we all read.
Left to right.
Right.
Left to right.
The way we scan things.
The way we scan things. So what's a word that refers to where something is on a page?
Composition.
Composition is good, and I'm just going to say position. Okay? So, in other words, if I put something down here in my website, what order is it going to get seen in normally, all things being equal on the website?
The last.
Last, because we read left to right and top to bottom. So if you made that if you made that sort of a wavy line, it would look like this. If you made it a straight line, it would go from here to here, right? So that's why, you ever notice that most websites tend to put their logos and the most important information in this corner? It's because it's what you see first. And when you're going, we don't realize this because the web, is usually so quick, unless you're at my house. Then the web is like sort of non-existent. You get up to go make some toast while you're trying to get to CNN. But okay, this is why most people will put their information about their website, their logo right here. Another reason they'll do it is because when you come to a website, when you type in a URL, the first thing you want to know is if you're in the right place. Okay, because sometimes we miss a letter or something. So they'll tell you right there you're at CNN.com. Beyond all of this stuff that you have very accurately identified as reasons part of a visual hierarchy, And by the way, the reason that I write so sloppily is so that if I misspell it, you can't tell. Okay, so what this is a position, this other attribute is something that is unique to the web. Okay? Here's another one of those questions. What's another reason why you would put the most important piece of information up here on a website?
First thing that's,
It's the first thing you see. We read left to right, but there's another reason, and I'll give you a little clue.
when it does a search, you know,
It's not search. I will give you a clue. Okay, here's my website. Okay, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Okay? So, when you're looking at a website on different devices, this corner is the most stable corner of the website because it's always present. Okay, so whether it's a small phone screen, tablet size, desktop, we always see that upper left corner. Okay, so great place to put a logo. Now, if you want to mix things up a little, you can put a logo here, you can put a logo over here, you know, just to make things a little different. That looks good. It's just a design function to break things up a little bit. Okay, so what we're talking about here is what we're always talking about when we're talking about the intersection of liberal art and technology, form and function. If this were one of Dennis's art classes, you guys would be entirely concerned with that, right? How it looks, okay? If this were a pure coding class, and all you were doing were typing miles of code, you would be concerned with this, right? But this class is a hybrid, and you're concerned with both, and you're concerned with achieving a balance of those two, right? Now the form part is what you guys all have an advantage in, because you're all artists, you're all designers, so you've taken classes like Illustrator and Photoshop, you're creative, you can do a layout, and you can make something look very interesting. But when it comes to the web, function is equally or more important than design. Because what good is a website if you can't navigate it? If you can't find the information, if you can't find the thing that you want to buy on this website, then you'll simply go to another one. Okay? So, with that in mind, with the fact that there are visual hierarchies, which are controlled by all of these, you could also say that there are functional hierarchies. Okay? You guys are sitting there thinking, oh man, I thought we did a list. He's making us do another list. This guy's a Nazi. Okay, so functional hierarchies, okay? Well, I'll help you out here. Functional hierarchies are the functional items on your website and how they get seen and used. All right? So I'll give you a gimme. This one's easy, okay? What kind of navigation bar are you going to see and use first? One that's on the side or one that's on the top? Top. So we'll say top navigation is higher up the hierarchy than side navigation. In fact, side navigation has a special name because it's a duke to the king, right? It's called sub-navigation. Okay, because it is subordinate, it's less important than the navigation that's at the top. Now, so we have the top navigation, we have the side navigation. Where does navigation at the bottom fall in this hierarchy?
bottom.
Right, so this is, you might call it something like footer navigation. And it is 1, 2, 3 like that. So, in other words, the further down the page you go, the less important the navigation is because the less easily it's seen.
It's always in fine print.
And it's always in small print, right? So that makes it, that's a size feature, which also affects the functionality. Okay, let's talk about other things that affect the functionality of a website. Does anybody have a newspaper with them? Like, does anybody read the Aztec? Does anyone read the Aztec? Let's see. Here's one. Okay. This newspaper, let's just say for a second that this newspaper is a really boring version of your website. Okay? No offense to Aztec people. Okay. So this is a really boring version of your website, and then it's not interactive, nothing's moving, you can't click on it and go anywhere, right? Now, when you look at this on the screen, right, you're seeing this information here, correct? But there's all this information on the page, right? So this section that you're seeing when you're looking at your first screenshot is referred to in the same terms as a newspaper. It's what's called above the fold. Okay? Whatever's above the fold is more important than what is below the fold, because this is what you see. Now, will people scroll down? Yes, they'll scroll down if they're interested. They'll scroll down if they have time, but everything above the fold is more important than what's below the fold. Okay, one last navigation functional hierarchy thing that I'm going to show you. And then you guys are so excited because you get to take a break. Let's go to the most successful e-commerce site of all time. Amazon.com. So many things to learn about web design from the Amazon.com website. In fact, I think for your homework this weekend, I'll say, go to Amazon.com and tell me something about web design. Okay, so what do we want to buy on Amazon?
Movie.
We want to buy a movie. Okay? Let's look at some elements of Amazon's website here. Let's see. This is very interesting. Amazon has actually their navigation over here as sub-navigation, right? Most websites have it across the top, because we've already talked about the fact that top navigation is superior to side navigation. Can somebody tell me why the navigation is not on the top but it's on the side on this particular site? It has to do with the functionality of the site. Because people are scrolling up and down? Search, exactly, right. What Amazon has discovered from reading their statistics about how people use their website is that more people will type something into the search box than will ever look through a menu, right? Like you said movie, I just typed in movie. I didn't look over here and scroll down and shop by department. That takes time, right? This illustrates what you might refer to as the two different kinds of people that come to a website. And of course, there's more than two kinds, but let's just put them into two general categories. And I always call this the Ace Hardware situation, right? And what it is if you walk into Ace Hardware, you are one of two people. You are the kind of people that came to Ace specifically because there's people in red vests walking around, and you can walk up to them and say, where are the plumbing tools? Or you went to Ace Hardware because it's close to you, and you walked in and you looked around until you saw an aisle that said plumbing tools, and you walked down there and you found the plumbing tools. So somebody tell me, how does that relate to a website? The kind of person who goes and finds the plumbing tools on their own, that's the kind of person that looks through these lists. They do it, or I'm sorry, that's the kind of person that types into the search box, right? They're just like, I'm going to go find it. I'm just going to put this in and find it, right? The person who goes and talks to the person in the red vest is the person who is, looking through here to find their information. And so there's people who will very methodically look through to find information, and people that will just search it out on their own, right? So if you have the kind of website where people are going to just search, like Amazon, which is too huge to look through all the lists, then you put your search box front and center. Just like, what's another prominent website that has the search box front and center? Google, right? Google could have ginormous lists of things that you could look for. In fact, there was a website in the very early days of the internet that did. Yahoo. Yahoo was the first Google, if you will, and all it was a giant list of categories. It was this. And the reason Google, knocked Yahoo out of the park is because they became this. All right? So anyway, we're looking for a movie. So I'm going to go ahead and search for movies. Okay, let's get Ice Age. Oh no, I don't want to stream movies. I just want to buy one. Give me a movie I can buy. Okay.
Stream it and that could be our list.
I like that. Okay, let's type in Ice Age in movies and TV. Okay, let's see. Come on, you guys. Okay, that's not going to work. I got to do a book. So I'm going to do Dreamweaver in books. I just want to demonstrate this one little thing. Okay, great. Okay, like I said, if you ever want to learn anything about web design, go to Amazon's website. Okay, so we just learned about two kinds of hierarchies: visual hierarchies and functional hierarchies. Visual hierarchies and functional hierarchies. And we also talked about the fact that we want to learn a way to balance them. Now, Amazon has teams of people working on their website that crunch data and look at the way people use their websites, and they are constantly trying to achieve this balance. They don't care so much about this one, do they? Amazon is not where you go to say, oh, you know, it's just so beautiful, right? Amazon is all this. And in fact, most websites, as in most projects in general, most creative projects, they, you know, there's not really an exact balance. They're leaning one way or the other. On the web, they tend to lean this way, right? So, somebody tell me, I've come to Amazon, I've looked for a book, I've arrived at the page where the book is. So somebody tell me what the visual hierarchy is on this page that's going to allow me to buy the book. Louis?
Well, the picture of the book, the cover, right?
Right? That shows me that I'm on the correct page. That's just like having a logo up here. Okay? But what is it that's going to allow me to buy the book?
Buy now or yellow. Oh, and color.
And why? What is different about that from every other element on this page?
Yellow.
It's yellow. Okay? It's also kind of round. All right? When you look at this page and everyone like it was designed specifically so that every other element on it would be downplayed in favor of that little yellow button. Because that's where they want you to go. That's what visual and functional hierarchies are all about. It's about directing the user to do what you want them to do. In this case, you know, they have all this information here because they want you to reference it and be able to read it and everything. But really what they want you to do is press this little button. Okay? All right, why doesn't everybody take a 10-minute break? I'm such a star. Wave to my fans in the laptop. Okay. All right, so let's go back to, so we were talking about Amazon when we left off. So anyway, yeah, Amazon is great. Any big website like CNN, Apple.com, you know, if you get a chance, in fact, I would like you to do that this weekend, or this week I should say before you come back next week, is go ahead and look at least 3 major websites, like, you know, MSNBC or CNN, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. Look at least 3 websites and see if you can identify some of the components we talked about as visual or functional hierarchies or things that operate as both. And just sort of absorb that information because it will help you when you're designing your websites to design things that help you push your customers and direct your customers to where you want them to go. Like, I'll show you my website. It looks really weird because it's on this small screen. Let me see if I can, yeah, that's more like it. Okay, so here's my website. And like I think I think this is true of most professions or most things you do in life. Oftentimes when you start out, you do very complicated things and you're very ambitious. And then over time, you tend to simplify and become more minimalistic and focused, right? So this is where my website is now. It's changed a lot, but right now it's very simple and it's very focused, right? So can somebody tell me some of the visual and formal hierarchies taking place here?
Big blue button.
Big blue button, right. So in other words, it's kind of like Amazon's little yellow button, right? It's like, hey, there's a giant big blue button here. You think I should push it? Probably, right? When you do something like this, you're pretty much saying, hey, this is where you should go. You know, click on that, check out my portfolio. All this other stuff is accessible to you, but the portfolio is really where you want to go. Now below that, I have what you might refer to as sub-navigation. 3 smaller sections that you might also want to go to, and I give that to you as an option because I realize people may not just want to see the portfolio; they may want to see other things. But notice, come on in, that that is visual and formal hierarchy in action. Okay, so let's go back to our website here that we're playing with now. What I'd like us to move on to, because of course the whole purpose of this class is to learn about web design and how that interacts with visual design and functional design, which means that the more you know about web design, the better the websites are you'll be able to create, and the better the subsequent projects you do will be. So for example, we've done project 1, which was something very similar to this, very simple website, and for project 2, I'm going to have slightly higher expectations. Project 2, which I'll assign in the next week or two, is going to be a 3-page website, but I'm going to have higher expectations. I want more functionality. I want more visual and formal hierarchy going on the website, right? So in order to expect that from you, I probably should show you how to do that stuff. So let's talk about ways that we can improve the look and the feel of this website, or different options that we have, right? So for example, one of the things that I requested of you, or required of you for this website, was that you put in a background color for the entire website, right? And can somebody tell me, if I go to my style sheet here, where on the style sheet that is?
Very top.
Very top, right? This command right here, this style body, if you use just the word body on your CSS page, you are referring to the entire website. And so anything that you put in here is going to affect the entire website. So in this case, if you say body and you say background color, that means the background color for the entire website, right? So background color, and we put a color in there, and then that's what appears, right? Now what else can I put in the background?
Image.
What?
Image.
An image, right? So if I wanted to, instead of putting a background color in, put an image in, I could simply delete all this stuff here, go up here to my beginning curly bracket and click right there and then hit my enter button or my return button, and I would get the list of code hints. Now I want to put something here in the background, so what letter am I going to click?
I.
No, I'm going to click B for background. So it's going to come down here in the background. These are all the different things I can do in the background. So which one am I going to use?
Image.
Background image, right? So I'm going to double click on that. And what it's going to do, it's going to drop in this code, background image, and then it's going to give me a code hint which will allow me to browse for an image that I want to use. So I can click on browse. And I can then navigate into my images folder, and I can use this little pig because it's one of the few things I have in there, and hit open. And what it does is it puts in this code that says URL images/pig.jpg. In other words, this is URL, Uniform Resource Locator. This means this is where we will find the background image for this website. So now I put a semicolon after that, and by the way, the reason that that's wrapped like that is because my window is so small. If I put my mouse in the center here, when it becomes a double-headed arrow, I can pull that open. You can see this is all on one line. Now, in addition to putting the background image, I can hit return at the end of this line. I can hit B again, and I can do another function here, which is going to tell me how many of these images I want in the background, and that's called background repeat. And what that means is how many times you want that image repeated. So I'll just say repeat and put in my semicolon there. Now, just so you know, if you want the image to just repeat over and over again, you don't have to do background repeat, repeat. It's redundant because as a default, the pig picture will repeat over and over again with just this background image command. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, you see the little pig back there? Now he's doing something called tiling. And what tiling is, it's like when you put tiles down, like these tiles of rug here, it just starts at the upper left corner and repeats him over and over again. So you can put an image back there. You can also put a pattern back there. And there are entire websites that are devoted to patterns that are background tiles for websites. And the way that they're designed as squares usually, and they might have like a circle right here and then half a circle here and half there, like this kind of thing. And then when you put all these next to each other, they form a pattern, just like tiles that have patterns on them, right? So you can just type free website background tile into Google and come on pages and pages of this stuff. Or you can go to some of the stock image sites and buy nice ones. Or you can go to Color Lovers, which I showed you earlier. A lot of the background tiles there are for sale and they're really nice. And you can search them for using keywords. Now let's say that let's say I had a very specialized background I wanted to put on a website. And for some reason I just wanted this pig to go across the top. I didn't want him to repeat over and over again. So what I would do then is I would change my background repeat to repeat X. And X refers to what?
X-axis.
The X-axis, right? Oh no, math. This is the X-axis. This is the Y-axis. Right, going up, going like that. So if I tell them I just want my pig to repeat X, and then we go look at it, then we see we just have a row of pigs across the top. Now, when we're looking at this pig, it might not make any sense. Why would we do that, right? But what if we were going to do something kind of clever with Photoshop? What if we were going to take Photoshop and we were going to make some little design, and what it was a gradient. So let's say it started off dark blue here, and then as it gradiated down, it became white. Okay, so it was blue at the top, and then it was a gradient that became white by the time it got to here. And let's say the background color of our website was white. Then what you would see when you would look at this is white, 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 gradient, 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 blue, right? And it would give you this cool sort of gradiated effect. And in fact, this is how website backgrounds are generally done that have that gradient effect in them. Let me see if I can bring one up.
Is that kind of what you tried to show us last class, where it was like, I forgot whose page it was, but it was orange, and there was gears on it, and there was gradients?
It very well may have been, yeah. Now this site, I'm hoping that I can, yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is an exact example of what I was talking about. So see what's happening here is there's a repeated image that's probably, and this is the thing, you don't have to make it a giant image like the pig back there is pretty big. You could make it just a little sliver that's like 1 pixel wide or 10 pixels wide, and it could have orange that gradiates down to gold. Then you have the background color of the website be gold, and what happens is the background image sits on top of the background color. You can have both. And so we see the gradient piece here, and then we see the gold. Okay? Now let's see if we can, because I could be wrong. This could be one long, tall sliver. Let's see. Yeah, it is. Okay? So actually, it's a little taller than I thought. But you can right-click on any background, or on the Macintosh control-click, and say View Background Image, and it will show you the image that's being used for the background. So this one is a little taller than what I expected, but it's the same principle. It sits here up at the top. It's a repeat X, so it repeats across the top of the web page, and then by the time it terminates here, it hits the background color of the web page, which is the same color yellow, and so as a result, you get what looks like a continuous gradient. Right? So backgrounds, you can use your Photoshop knowledge and your visual design knowledge to make a really bitchin' background. Yeah.
So does it just, does it stay stationary and then it duplicates all the way across? Like it did, like it shows.
It's just like the pig. There's one of them here,
Yeah.
right? And then it duplicates it all the way across just on the x-axis. And then the background color is yellow. Okay? Does anybody want to, is it clear? Or does anybody want to see me take this and put it on the pig website? No? Okay, you guys get it. Okay, now, the other thing that you can do with backgrounds is instead of repeating X, you can repeat Y. Okay, so if we go to a split here, and we change repeat X to repeat Y, what's going to happen with the pig?
Vertical.
Vertical. Starts in the upper left-hand corner and goes down like this. Now, if you can imagine a use for that, it might be something like if you wanted a gradient to go this way. Start out with the orange over here and go to the yellow, and then everything else is yellow. Okay? Or if you had some kind of photography, like let's say you had a website called Open Arms, right? And so you had a picture of a woman, and like let's say this is the edge of the website, and she's a woman with open arms like this, and she's standing right here, and you wanted her to repeat over and over again, and then to fade into black, and then the website was black, and then there was all that, content over there. What else? What's another good example? Oh, let's say you had a design element over here, like let's say you just wanted a red line going down the left-hand side of your website. Well, you could just make a red line with a black background and have it repeat over and over, and it would just go all the way down your website, and then everything else would be black. Okay? So you're starting to get the idea of how you can take images, put them into the background. You can either have them tile horizontally or vertically, or you can have them repeat, right? Now, one more thing you could do with pictures, and this one you have to be a little careful on, is you can use very large pictures. And you can position them where you want to on the background of your website. Now be careful with large pictures. Why? Size equals slow download, right? So if you have a giant picture on the back of your website, it's going to be slow on mobile phones. But let's go out on the web. Let's get a picture of some cool guy. Okay, let's hit our search tools here. Let's get something, look for size, and we'll say large. Okay. All right, I'm thinking this guy. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pro.
Fro boy. Okay, so we're gonna save this image into my folder. Okay, and now we can put it in our website. We can go to our style sheet, and I'll go ahead and take out this background, repeat Y. And right here where it says, background image URL, it says, look in the images folder, look for pig. I can change it to the name of this guy, and I'm going to change the name of, oh shoot, it opened in Photoshop. I'm trying to change the name of just his photo, which is very difficult to do. It should just be this. So I'm just going to call him dude.jpg. Okay, so I'm just going to replace pig with dude, and we're going to see how that looks. Yeah.
Good. The whole thing is covered.
All right, the whole thing is covered, right? And there's just one of him, and he's ginormous, right? Now, that's obviously going to be a slow downloading website. There is a temptation to use big pictures, and they can look really good. You have to really knock them down in size in Photoshop. But you can do really cool things with them. Like, you can take a picture and you can position it. Like, let's imagine that this picture of this cool dude was about half the size, so it's like this big. You can take a background picture and you can say position 0, 0, which will put it up here in this corner. Or you could say position float right, so it's always on the right-hand side. Or you could say position center, so that it'll always be, in the center of your page. Of course, whatever's here will be covering it. but you can use big, delicious pictures in the background of your website. So let's look at some examples of that. So we'll say websites with large background pictures. Okay. So let's see. What's that? Weather.com, thank you. Okay, I probably have to zoom out a bit. Oh yeah. Check that out. That is a giant picture. Look at that thing. Huge, but kind of cool, huh? So, but notice that this picture is just grayscale, which makes it smaller because it doesn't have to render all the different colors. So that was a very brilliant choice on their part. And also, what do you see here?
Gradation.
A gradation to a color which is probably the color of the background down here, white. So in other words, the picture looks like it's here and it looks like it gradiates down into nothingness, but actually it probably ends right about here, and then this is where the white of the background of the page begins. So I'm sure you guys have seen this before. It's a very specialized effect. It can look really cool. It's great for magazine sites, for clothing sites, anything that you want to have high impact. Okay? Yes?
Does the background scale in size as you make the browser smaller? Or does it stay?
No, that's one of the reasons why backgrounds are generally so large, is because essentially you have to upload a background that is as wide as the widest screen that could look at it. And so you have to imagine somebody on their 27-inch iMac with the resolution maxed, and you have to literally make the picture that wide. Okay? So that's why they can be kind of big. Now you can write code that will swap out the background for smaller devices, right? So you can write what's called responsive code, and you can say if you're on a tablet, use a smaller picture so it downloads faster, and if you're on a phone, download faster. So that solves part of the problem, but you're always going to have a higher file size and a slower download time when you have big imagery on your website. Okay, so that's background images. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. All right, so one last thing that I want to tell you about background images is they can be used in the background of your website like this, but they can also be used in the backgrounds of your divs. Okay? Let's take a look at how that happens. So we know, if we go back to our website here, that this website is constructed of divs. There's a container div, there's a header div, there's a main div here, sidebar and a footer, right? Well, what we did, just because it was easy pretty much, is we took our header div and we created a header in something like Photoshop, and we dragged it in to the header, and it filled up the whole header. You can see here that my cows div fills up the whole header section of this website, right? Well, there's a way to take divs like this one, and instead of putting them inside of the box that is the div, right? Instead of putting them inside the box, there's a way to put them behind the box. So the box is still empty, right? Because what you may not know about divs is they're transparent boxes. They're boxes with glass bottoms. So you can take a picture and you can put it behind a div and it will show through the glass bottom of the div, and then that will allow you to still put things inside the div. Okay, so let's look at how you would do that. Now you guys can do this with your sites, because if you have a photo that takes up that whole header, you guys can do what I'm about to do. So, yes, question?
Are you talking about putting it as a background for the div or as an actual Z direction?
We're talking about the first option, which is using it as a background for the div. So for example, if I go into my CSS here, and I look at my header section, you can see that my header has a background color and a width and a height, probably similar to yours, right? The image itself is not being called here in the CSS. The image is being called in the HTML. So if I go over to my source code and I scroll down to my header section and I see div ID equals header, I see this code here which says image source equals images /header. This is where the header gets brought in if you want it to be inside the box. Okay, if you want it to be content, in other words, sitting right inside the div, right? Now, if we want it to be a background for the div, behind the glass bottom of the div, what we can do is we can cut it out of this section, right? And we can do that by highlighting everything from the begin angle bracket, IMG, all the way down to the end / and then end angle bracket. And what we can do is we can just hit our delete key. Now, if we now hit the refresh button at the bottom, or click over on the right side of our window, we're now going to see whatever our background color is for that div. In my case, it's yellow. Okay? So that means this is an empty div that has a yellow color behind it, right? Well, now let's go back to our split screen, and instead of the source code, let's click on the CSS style at the top. Let's scroll down to this header section, and let's click at the end of the line that says background color. Okay, so we have our flashing cursor at the end of the line that says background color. Now let's hit the return button. Let's hit the letter B, and let's double click on what? Background image. Okay, then double click on the browse button, and then navigate into your website folder, your Project One folder, and then if you have a folder called images, navigate into that and find the image that you use for your header. In my case, it's in my images folder and it's called header.jpg. Then click on that to select it and hit open. And finally, put a semicolon at the end of that line, because we put a semicolon on the end of all CSS style sheet lines to tell the computer we're finished with that line. Now, if we go back to the design view, it looks like just like it did before. It looks like we didn't do anything very different. It's like, hey, there's still a header there. But that header is actually behind the div. And the way that we can prove that is we can now go back into the split screen view, click back over to your source code, scroll down to where your div ID equals header, and click in between the beginning div and the end div for that, and type something like, my header is now behind the div. And then hit design. And what you'll see is your text now appears inside the div on top of the image. Okay? So what that gives you the ability to do is put any kind of background image in there you want, and then put text on top of it, which is live HTML text, which can be clickable, linkable, and searchable. So you could put text that says search and put a search box. You could put a navigation bar up here. You can do really anything you want, and use so it like sort of doubles your potential. You can have a background image and then fill that box with content. Yes, Lewis.
How do you get the image back again? Because I put it right there.
Oh, you forgot to put a semicolon. Yeah, in case you guys haven't noticed, HTML is incredibly persnickety, and if you do any error, any grammatical error at all on your HTML or CSS page, it can blow up the whole site. Okay, how are we doing? You guys have that Tuesday night glaze. All right, how about this? How about we wrap up a little early tonight so you guys can practice some of this stuff?
Yeah.
Now, what I would like you to do, we're supposed to be up to chapter 6 in the book, which is, it's called Web Design Templates. And Dreamweaver has a way to make templates. So what I would like you to do is practice this on your own. We'll talk about it a little more next week. If you're a little behind in the book, read it and catch up. And what I'd like you to do for this week is go into chapter 6 and do the lesson in there, which is Web Design Templates. And we'll talk about those next week, which is a way that you can use to just make one template and create a whole website from it. And that may be how you choose to do your next project. Okay, so we got to a few of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight. I knew we wouldn't get to them all. We talked about using images in the backgrounds in the websites and divs. And we also talked about menus a bit, but we didn't get quite to the part where we're going to build a menu horizontally. We can do that next week. And then we'll continue with this other stuff that we want to learn. Okay? But you guys have been a great class, so you are now free to ask me a question.
Well, I'm gonna wait till you're done.
You're gonna wait till I'm done. Okay. So anybody that wants to stick around and work in their book or work on websites or ask me questions, please do. The rest of you are free to do whatever your little heart desires. Yes.
I have a question, but I don't need, it's nothing I need help with, about websites.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so, because there's a background, how does the whole advertising work? Like, you can treat a background like
An
a
ad?
regular div?
No, you can't treat it a background like a regular
You
div.
can only put an image or a color.
Yeah, it's a great question. A background is unique. Okay, there's only one of them, and you can do anything you want to it, but it's not a div. What it's like is, okay, let me put it to you like this way. When you think of the divs that build your websites, do you remember those old entertainment centers that they're made of wood and they have all the holes in them that you can put stereos and TVs and stuff? Okay, imagine that your website is this. Your website is a wall with an entertainment center, an empty entertainment center in front of it, okay? The wall is the background of your website, and the entertainment center is all the divs, right? You can paint the wall, you can put wallpaper on the wall, you can put a giant picture of Elvis on the wall, right? That's going to be the background of your website, okay? It can only be one thing at a time. Your divs are the entertainment center, and you can change out. You could paste pictures over the back of your entertainment center, and those would be the back of your divs, and then you could put content in the divs. But the background is just one of a kind. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not quite? What's confusing?
No, it was just kinda interesting. So how do advertisements work? Do they, like, when you have a website, do they tell you where they want their advertisements to be?
It's a great question. I have an exact example for you.
I'm just curious, I mean, it's nothing I really need to know, but curious.
Okay, let's minimize this. Okay, here's a website that I work on. It's called musicartwriting.com, right? And what it is sorry, you guys are all like, doesn't look like that. Okay, here it is, right? So I just recently put Google Ads on it. And Google Ads are something that you can put on any website. And the way they work is you embed code into your website, and then Google pays you a little tiny sliver of money every time somebody sees the ad and every time somebody clicks on it. But they have to see it tens of thousands of times to make any sort of real money, right? Well, anyway, here is where some ad code is for an ad. This is called a skyscraper ad. I have no control over what ad is brought up here. In fact, you'll see that when I refresh this page, that it brings in something else, right? Now, the way Google Ads work is Google reads the content on your page and tries to bring up an ad that is relative to it. Well, my website is called Music Art Writing. So here's an ad for a guitar, right? But sometimes it's way more random than that.
Don't cookies also follow it? So, like, depending on who's looking at the ad?
Cookies also control it, that's right. But sometimes, like, you have to click it a bunch of times or whatever. But sometimes I'll get, like, Russian dating sites and stuff up here. Let's see. It's just this guitar right now, which is really annoying because I want to bring up the Russian dating site. But, like, I also have an ad here, right? Allstate. Don't know what that has to do with my website.
So do they just place it there, though? Or you
I-
place the code there and they put whatever?
Yeah, and then there's a third one down here, which is just, oh wow, that's Animate Pro. That's one of the classes I teach. That's crazy. Anyway, Google suggests you don't put more than 3 ads per page because it's too much otherwise, right? But now that you guys have seen these and you know how they work, I bet you start noticing them a little more on websites. And like we talked about before, it's creepy when you go to a website and the ads follow you around, right? And that is your cookies, right? And you can use, as Rachel was saying, you can use ad block software, which will get rid of these or will get rid of a certain amount of them. But that's how ads work on websites. Now, there are more advertising systems than this. Like, for example, a giant website like New York Times, you can bet they have control over what ads are on their front page, right? People are going and paying $10,000. Apple's paying them $10,000 to have a giant ad on the top of their page. And Apple knows that ad is going to appear 3,000 times that day, and then Microsoft is paying another 10,000 to appear the other 3,000 times, right? So it's just rotating through those ads. Okay, so it's either random based on whatever advertising company you're using, random, try to sync it with the content of your page, or it is very specific because you're a huge company and you can dictate the terms of your ads.
Back to the whole background.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can't you, like, if you wanted to just like expand just more information, can't you make something in Photoshop and then put it in, like, if you wanted to add text on the side, you could do that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you can do that. Most people wouldn't do it. Most people would use the background for a design element. Yeah.
Yeah, because the background, you can't, like, it's not, you can't click on it and go somewhere else. Like,
Right.
advertisement, you want to be able to click on it and go to whatever, you're advertising.
Right. It's an interactive medium, so you want to not just use the visual like a newspaper. You want to be able to click on it. Right?
It's like the wall behind your entertainment center.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, Molly, that's a really good. I'm glad you said that because you see our page here. It's designed in such a way that it has all this extra space here because it's responsive. So I was actually thinking exactly what you just said. I'm going to make a background image that actually has advertising for my company that will appear over here, but it won't be clickable because it's a background. It'll just say something here, like it'll just say, sponsored by Dreamco or blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Or click on the link to your left to learn how you could win a MacBook Pro that just exploded, right?
You can make your website bigger. You can simplify your actual clickable website, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was just-
Okay, other questions? Oh, those were good ones. Yes.
Just another general question, not as deep as that, but when you're actually working on your website and you want to, you see the code, you split it, is there any way, when I look at my background, I can't really see it. Is there any way to, like in Photoshop, how you can turn off layers, you just look at one layer?
Yeah, you can actually go in and you can turn your container off. And the container is, of course, the big box. The container is the entertainment center, right? You can actually have movers come in and move that thing out, and then you can see your picture, right? Now, keep in mind that if you have a big, beautiful picture back there and you have a website, the content's going to be over the big, beautiful picture. So generally, you just use something that looks good on the sides. So landscapes, things people with pictures, like, I don't know, you guys ever go to Yahoo and go into the movie section? And there will be like a picture of a movie, and there will be like Harry Potter will be on one side and Hermione will be on the other, right? That's a big picture, but it just has the main elements on the right and the left, so you can see Yahoo in the middle and see them on either side.
So if you scale the browser though, it'll
Yeah, they have special code in there on those big websites where they say if you bring the browser down to tablet size, it'll switch that huge picture out for one that's this big, so that it loads faster. Okay, all right, good class, you guys. So you guys are free to go, and stick around if you have questions and need answers, or want to work on it. Okay, so. Okay, so. Bye, Molly. See you later. Okay, yeah, so you have to set up what's called a site, right? So you go to the site, and then new site. Okay, now give it a name. Call it like my site. Click on that little folder there, which is, it's gonna let you, go to your computer and create a folder somewhere. So wherever you want, like on your desktop.
I'm gonna put in the desktop.
Okay, that's fine. And then just click new folder. And then call it my site. Bye, guys.
Like, tomorrow. I can't. I used to be able to find
Okay.
out mine.
So now I
I remember I had to search. I had to search for a specific keyword to get that one.
So now it shows you my what's over there, right?
now we have to go back to your desktop, so we can see it.
The biggest problem I have is I know exactly.
Okay, now where is your My Sites, or your project?
Oh, the one I had before?
Yeah, the one that you, is that what we're working on, right? Okay,
Well, I don't have it in folder, I have them in like here.
okay, well, we have to get everything inside that folder, so,
Okay.
so drag everything into your My Sites folder. Oh, there it is. Top row. I know it's in there somewhere.
I have to clean my desktop every week.
So do I, that's exactly what mine looks like.
Okay, so.
Good night, we'll see you.
So this is one of the things you learn, is to put everything in one folder.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Greg.
So I have to search.
Here's how we'll find out about that. We can just listen to code.
Because, well, they are cheap.
Oh. So like, see, there's one called, this one actually. That one is called, right? So, and it looks like you have a folder called images, right? So what we do is, we just look for that folder. Is there a folder for this after code? Okay, so can we search for it by
Sales will be on there.
Now, is it on a,
Yeah.
is it on a flash drive?
No, it's in my email. You know, I'm gonna, it's because I have this lazy thing here. But this one doesn't work for this computer. This one. Is where I save everything.
Oh, so you had emailed you, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you go to your email?
Yeah.
Was that one?
And I like this one. I wish I could take that.
You didn't come back?
I wish I could go back.
Go back.
Yeah. Every day on the. Oh,
Yeah,
here
this
it
is it,
is.
alright. So can we download it? Now, cool, everything, okay, good. We're not moving that to there.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got two images, a style sheet, and two photos, right? Okay, so
No,
now,
they're-
those be where your downloads folder. Okay, so drag each of those into your.
Oh, that's good. Actually, yeah, actually, it's
Three
a lot of
images.
right now. You were saying you were trying to
Scroll down.
There isn't really
Maybe we didn't get it.
way to, there's new programs for
So now that's it. And now if you hit this little refresh button, this little circle here.
and that's actually
See how it plays in there? Okay.
So
Now,
if
so what we're gonna have to do is
have to
kind of close out of this stuff because that's definitely something that's
close on figure out which one you like the best. Go there. And then hopefully
Now,
find
double
something
click on one of the
pay
page
for you in that area.
double click on the index
And
of
half the time you probably didn't connect.
So like,
But in terms of
yeah, like
this,
index.
what you're talking about, computer and stuff.
Then you go to the
Unless
web.
you unless you teach your, like your
Yeah,
education
that's
as well.
Now,
Because it's a
the reason we're not seeing these is because this is what
you
we
have
want.
at school, they're like.
Right, the reason we build everything on the same website is so that they can find something, right? So for example, we want to find the style sheet instead of it going through file,
So you have life
you know,
expectancy.
colon, slash, slash, E drive.
Um,
Just say, hey, the
But
style
if you
sheet's the
have
same,
a lot of
control
ideas
style,
of
that's CSS, right? And then we can find the
costs
style.
and places,
Okay.
then
Then we click on
what I
image,
would
and we say,
for
slash additional.
I'll-
What?
Yeah, cause see, it's just saying, oh, the header, if I was on the header now, click where
You're not sure. Is it wrong or is it sometimes it's.
Nice, huh?
Yeah. I was like, oh my god, I know what I did.
Everything.
Yeah, I ruined everything. Yeah.
Everything I touch. Okay, now do file save all so that it'll be saved.
They can drop it, so.
Okay, so- I'm gonna do it just again.
Okay.
Do you think,
That's all.
cause I was looking in your medium,
And
last
oftentimes it's
last
included.
and
Oh, hold
I,
on a second. I forgot to turn off my recorder. Let me turn it on.
It looks like it's gonna
Okay.
take you about 100 years to get the way to do it. And I was thinking we could do this, and then they're like,